Additionally, hello my friends, how you doing today? Okay, enough with the chit chat. We got stuff to talk about here. We got a big, fat, juicy rumor. I was gonna put it in the I did put it in the roundup. I was gonna just put it in the roundup. Then I realized, no, I have a lot to say about this. So here we are. Here we are in the full video because, of course, there's a rumor floating around. It only just now started its float around that Nintendo EPD is working on a new DK game. Nintendo EPD is one of Nintendo's biggest in-house developers. They work on a lot of Mario games, and the last thing they did was Super Mario Odyssey. Maybe they did some other projects between there. I don't believe so, though. I believe Super Mario Odyssey is like the main... as far as this conversation goes, that's the most recent relevant thing you can point to and be like, oh, okay, so that's who Nintendo EPD is. I don't know if there is any one source of this rumor or if it's one of those things where it just kind of caught on really quickly. The first that I heard of it was a tweet from Lonely Goomba, a friend of mine. He edited some Arlo videos way back in the day. It was awesome. But anyway, that's the first that I saw was this tweet right here, was that Nintendo EPD was working on, when he said it, he said a 3D game. And there seems to be some debate whether or not it's a 2D game or a 3D game. But basically, that was the first I heard. But then I read the Nintendo Life article. They said that they also heard it from him. So that does seem to be one of the, his tweet seems to be one of the first publicly known versions of somebody talking about this. But Nintendo Life claims, I guess I shouldn't say claims, I believe them. I believe them when they say, okay, Nintendo Life says that they have heard this rumor from a, what they believe is a trusted source that they are not disclosing in their article. So just somebody with a good track record, I suppose, has corroborated the rumor. Additionally, they reference a quote from famed leaker Zippo. And despite me being wholeheartedly against the whole idea of leaking private information that you're not supposed to have, I will now reward Zippo and validate their actions and give them all of the attention that they want by reading their quote and making a whole video about it. Okay, here we go. I'm a YouTuber, being a hypocrite's the name of the game. Anyway, okay, it's the Big Ape's 40th anniversary, and while I'm not sure how Nintendo is celebrating the occasion, there is a new 2D DK game being developed by EPD Tokyo. Retro is obviously busy with other things, so Nintendo has taken it upon themselves to bring DK back in as internal series. That might be a typo. Don't expect the country moniker to return, as EPD Tokyo are not interested in making a sequel to games they didn't make. Diddy, Cranky, and the Kremlin crew should all be returning in this installment. It sounds like this game is launching before the end of the year. An E3 announcement seems very likely. So as I said, some people are saying 3D, some people are saying 2D. It is very possible that the 3D thing simply came from it being from EPD, and the last thing they worked on was Odyssey. There are many times when the rumor can kind of get muddied up in this way, where some little detail will kind of change based on an assumption. So that very likely could be happening here. Or nobody really knows if it's 2D or 3D or whatever, who knows. The main thing that I want to talk about here, the main reason I wanted to make a whole video about this is I gotta say, if it ends up being, if it's real, obviously, this could just not be real. If it is in 3D, then that would be incredible. Like, obviously, I made a whole video about how Nintendo, they need to start making more 3D games. They need to start modernizing. I mean, they did it before with some of these games, and they need to keep doing it now. We want 3D. People are craving 3D. 3D games sell better. It's just generally how it works. And just like revitalize the series, do something new with it, make a new 3D adventure game, it would be incredible. It would look beautiful. It would be so awesome. If it ends up being 2D, I cannot properly communicate how disappointed I would be. I love Returns, I love Tropical Freeze. They're some of the best 2D platformers I've ever played, but I want DK to do something new, something fresh. And here's the thing though, it's not just me, and this is another thing, if you haven't seen the video, I'll link it somewhere about how Nintendo should make more 3D platformers and stuff. It's not just about what I want. It's also about sales. It's not something you can boil down exactly into one perfect statement. There's a ton of outliers and things to consider, but like overall, trend-wise, we see that Nintendo's 3D series usually outperform their 2D ones. Mario is an outlier. People love 2D Mario, so whenever there's a 2D Mario, people buy it just by the boatload. They love it. But then, like, Kirby games, usually couple million units at the most, you know? Yoshi games, couple million units. Donkey Kong, usually a couple million units. Tropical Freeze did not sell very well at all. You know, better than on the Wii U or whatever, but still just a couple million units. Returns on the Wii sold pretty darn well. And I don't want to get into the whole entire thing, but it feels like that was kind of an outlier too, because it was like, oh my gosh, the return of DK. There was a big casual audience on the Wii, so it was like a thing. Oh, I remember DK, played the DK game, but then they didn't come back for Tropical Freeze. Even on the Switch, which has a massive install base. It's a stronger, healthier install base than on the Wii. And yet, still, a couple million units. So if they are working on a 2D DK game, my big question, what could this game possibly do to differentiate itself from Tropical Freeze? Tropical Freeze is already on Switch. We have a modern, cool DK game on Switch. It harkens back to the country games and everything. It's everything you could possibly want from a DK game on Switch. And it's certainly okay to make a sequel to a game, even if it wasn't a massive smash hit. I always wish Nintendo would do that. I mean, I would. Don't get me wrong. A 2D DK game, another one on Switch, would just be a good thing all by itself. Yeah, just like DK's fun. Yeah, sure, put another one on Switch. But the thing is, like, if they are, it says they are trying to differentiate it from Tropical Freeze and Returns. They're trying to make their own thing. So, like, how do you do that, though? If it's not a simple follow-up, if it's not another in the Returns series, it's just another 2D DK game, how does that work? How do you get people to be excited about that? And then there's a little conflicting information there. Zippo says that they're gonna bring back all the classics, Cranky and the Kremlings and all that stuff. So basically, it's the country formula with the country concepts and characters, all with Ks. But if it's not a country game, they don't want it to be a country game, that doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I don't really understand that. And like, okay, you're gonna differentiate it by making it just totally different? You're not climbing and throwing barrels and stuff? Okay, then is it a DK game at all? What, are you doing something so different with it that it's like barely DK anymore? I don't really know. Is there some really fresh new perspective they're bringing to it? It's absolutely possible, for sure. I mean, they could just prove me wrong. They could just be like, hey, here's the new 2D DK game, and it's just like, oh my gosh, this is somehow in its own unique way completely mind-blowing, and everybody buys it, even though they didn't buy Tropical Freeze. But for some reason, this game is more attractive. Maybe they bring in Mario. Maybe they let Mario be in the DK games again. I really don't know. I'm having a hard time. I'm struggling with just the simple concept of making another 2D DK game on Switch. Now, as with any rumor, obviously this rumor could be not a thing at all. Usually when you have so many different people all at once starting to talk about a thing, so many different sources, that usually means it's true. Although this one caught fire so quickly that it has been caused by one singular source. The speed at which it's spreading kind of suggests that. I don't know what that source is. But if that's true and that one source is wrong, then there you go. And the individual details could easily be wrong. We have had a good number of projects that have been leaked, rumored, that ended up being true, but did not have the same details that we expected. When Origami King, the whole concept, was leaked, a lot of people were saying it's an RPG. It's a return to form. And that didn't exactly end up happening. It did to a degree. I'm sure a lot of people will argue that it kind of did, but it didn't. It's definitely not an RPG. It was a return to form in a lot of ways, but was still the same old in a lot of ways. So that, that aspect of the rumor was not strictly true. There's a new Paper Mario, and it's gonna be like the old games. That just didn't happen. And that could be the case here. Any amount of this could be wrong, including the whole thing, obviously. And I kind of mentioned it a little bit a second ago, but like, I'd say again, like, it would be cool. Nintendo EPD, they're incredible. If they made a DK game, I have no doubt that it would probably be a super duper good DK game. Maybe even as good as Tropical Freeze. I don't really know. I love Tropical Freeze, probably the best 2D platform in the entire world. But I'm sure they could make something great. They're very talented. Obviously, they made Odyssey. I sure like Odyssey, but it's just so hard for me to imagine it drumming up that much interest. Even in, you know, again, not just me, but in like the general public. What is this? What are they doing with it? Why does this? I don't know. You know what? Here's another option. Here's another potential thing. Maybe it's not even like a big new mainline DK game. Maybe it's some smaller project or something. You know what I mean? Maybe it's some DK related thing, or it's a platformer, but it's a small game. I don't really know. I'm just saying, like, we don't know anything. Any of this could be wrong or different or whatever. But if it's just a regular 2D game, why? Like, I don't know. I can't see it selling that well. I can't see it breaking the curse of the couple million Nintendo non-Mario 2D platformer. It's just that we've seen it time and time again on the Switch. Not everything fits this little thing, but just like in general, like Zelda, let's revitalize the whole series, make it a giant open world. Look at that, sold incredibly. Just skyrocketed the series to new heights. Super Mario Odyssey. Oh, let's give them back sandboxes. That's what people have been asking for. They do it. Giant, giant success. Oh, Kirby. Let's make a Kirby. Couple million. Good for Kirby, but like couple million. Yoshi. Let's make a Yoshi. It's like the other Yoshis. A couple million. Luigi's Mansion. Let's take fan feedback from the second game and fix it and make it even better. Look at that, 10 million sales, giant Nintendo IP now. And to beat a dead horse, Origami King. Let's give the fans some of what they want, but still hold back on a bunch of other stuff and be really stubborn about it and make another big controversy. Couple million sales, for 2 or 3 million sales. Don't let DK be the next victim of this weird mentality at Nintendo of, I don't know, whatever, just do this. No, be bold and exciting and new with DK. This is your chance, like the Switch, I've made whole videos on this. The Switch is their chance to revitalize and relaunch any series. They just have to put the effort in. And I want DK to get that effort. Make DK relevant again. Make something big. Anyway, I could go on. If this does end up being true, I think it will be interesting that we actually get an anniversary game. I feel like usually when we say, oh, there's a big anniversary coming up, this would be the perfect time for a new game in this series. And then like it never happens, even though like it's true, an anniversary would be perfect, but it rarely actually lines up that way. So if we actually got, hey, DK anniversary, new DK game to celebrate, that'd be awesome. It'd be a nice change of pace. Though, as usual, it would be really sad to get it spoiled, especially 1 month away from E3. That's just so, like, just come on. Give us something. Let us have some sort of surprise here. Ugh. And yet, here I am talking about it and perpetuating the knowledge of it. It's kind of because it's like, it's already done, you know? Once it's out there, it's already out there. Might as well talk about it. I don't know, whatever. Oh yeah, one last thing to mention before I wrap this up. If Nintendo EPD is working on this DK project, whatever it is, that could potentially mean that they are not working on Super Mario Odyssey 2, as a lot of us, myself included, have been hoping. If they weren't doing that, or at least working on some other big 3D Mario thing, yeah, I would be disappointed. But if this ends up being a 3D DK, like the kind that I want, that is one of the few things that I would be willing to accept, that I'd be willing to sacrifice Odyssey 2 for. If they said, no, we haven't been working on Odyssey 2, but here's a big crazy 3D DK game, I'd be like, yeah, okay, I'll take it, especially just because of the importance for DK, for the series, how just big and important that would be. That is worth it in my book. If it's a 2D game and they say we could have been working on Odyssey 2 this entire time, but instead we've been working on another 2D DK, that's not gonna feel as good. That's definitely not gonna feel as good to me. That's gonna feel an awful lot like the Tropical Freeze announcement, where like I ended up liking Tropical Freeze, but there was still a thing where it's like, we used to make Metroid Prime games, but now we spent 5 years on a 2D DK game. And it's just like, really? Really? I don't want that to happen again, especially because that's going to send a message to Nintendo. If the game doesn't end up performing well, we better stop making 2D DK games, or at least stop giving them to our big and giant studios that are usually making big 3D games. Anyway, I do have to stop. I will stop. I have stopped. Go down to the comments. Let me know what you think about all this. Is my 2D platformer bias grating on your nerves, or would you really like to see a big, exciting, fresh, like franchise rebooting 3D DK game like I do? Whatever the case, I love you. Please have a wonderful, beautiful, awesome day that is as wonderful, beautiful, and awesome as yourself. Goodbye.